I think the story that I want to start with my mother, who was from Chicago. And how did she get out to Phoenix, Arizona to go to what is now Arizona State University? It's kind of a funny story in a way, because her mother lived in Chicago. She invested in a few small houses and had some rentals, but she also liked to travel with this pretty radical group in those days, in the 1920s and 30s, called the Women's Christian Temperance Union. So it was this pretty radical group that went and spoke against alcohol and drinking. Well, when she was in, I know, which is
it's a bit ironic.
Yes, it is ironic, and we'll talk about why.
This is my great-grandmother.
This is your great-grandmother. And so what happened is, when she got to Phoenix, she thought this was beautiful. I mean, they call it the Valley of the Sun. It was clean. It was, there was a desert and a few hours north, there's a forest. And so she really, really wanted your grandmother, Lois Smith, to go to Arizona State College, which she did.
And that's quite a ways away from Chicago.
Yes. I mean, it would have been a train trip away, and you would not go home again till summer, which she would do. And then she was a waitress at the B&C coffee shop on Michigan Avenue in Chicago. She did that every summer because she had to help earn the money to go back to school.
That's your mother. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
And so my great-grandmother had traveled out to Arizona on the temperance movement, trying to get people to stop drinking.
Yes.
And this is before Prohibition or right around Prohibition?
Well, it would have been after Prohibition. But, in those years, hard drinking was a serious problem, especially in big cities like New York and all in those times during the Depression and that. I've learned that from the Ken Burns series. I didn't realize just how much of a social problem it was. But the humor in this story is that Lois Smith, who became Lois Smith Benedict, came out, and she had a scholarship from the WCTU to get her there. And she had to also work, and she did ironing for 10 cents a shirt. And that's how she earned her money. Well, so your grandfather, Jim Benedict, was in the Aggie Club because he was always going to be a cattleman. So this club was going to have their picnic. Now, these would be all guys that would either be going into cattle or farming. And so they dared him that he wouldn't have enough nerve to call that cute girl Lois Smith and ask her to the Aggie picnic.
The girl from Chicago.
Yes, the girl from Chicago.
The big city girl.
Yeah, the big city girl. And he was never one to pass up a dare. So he went to the phone and called her, and she accepted. That's how they met and how they went to that picnic. All right, so they started dating after that. And he once took her to a new film in Phoenix, and it was called The Gentleman from Arizona. And before the film started, he leaned over and he asked her, "Do you know a gentleman from Arizona?" And she said, "I'll tell you after the movie." And so that was their...
Is that her way of saying, keep your hands to yourself?
Yes, I think so. Be kind of saying, well, we'll see how you act, and then I'll let you know the result afterwards. So they dated for the next 2 years. He was 2 years older. So he was graduating from university. She had finished her sophomore year. And they decided to be married, which they were in 1942. But it galled him to marry her. He had to pay off the WCTU loan. And Jim Benedict was a pretty big drinker. So he had no use for the WCTU, and yet he had to pay off the loan to have his bride. So those are a few of the funny stories. One other story he would tell us is after 1 year of dating, he decided he better get to Chicago to meet the family. They were pretty serious and to do that, and he had to sell his best horse, and he never forgot it. He never forgot that he had to sell that horse for $250 for that train fare to Chicago. And so, of course, it was all in good fun because they married in Flagstaff and their honeymoon was at the Grand Canyon.
What a great place for a honeymoon.
Yes, and they had a long marriage, more than 50 years. It was a very happy and long marriage.